Nature Revisited. Nature Revisited is a podcast that explores our relationship with the natural world. It consists of interviews, stories, and discussions that highlight the notion that nature is not a place one goes to, but rather a place one is already a part of, that we are nature. For those of you who are new to the podcast, my name is Stefan Van Norden. On this episode of Nature Revisited, we are pleased to welcome Megan Eaves-Egenes to the podcast. Megan is the author of the new book, Nightfaring, In Search of the Disappearing Darkness. Megan is a journalist, author, and a DarkSky advocate. She's also the editor of DarkSky International magazine, Nightscape. Megan is a recipient of the Lowell Thomas Award for travel writing and is the founder of DarkSky London, a community group that is focused on light awareness and is passionate about exploring the intersection of darkness, culture, and the natural world. Nightfaring is a philosophical travelogue and a nature memoir about darkness, stargazing, and human nature. Megan joins me from her home in London to talk about stargazing, nightfaring, and what we lose when we lose the darkness. So Megan, welcome to Nature Revisited.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure having you on the podcast, talking about your new book, Nightfaring. Nightfaring is about your journey to understand darkness better. When did you first start this journey that would lead you to write this book, and why?
It's a great question. It's been honestly a very long journey. This book was not something that I just decided to do quickly. It kind of built up in my life before I knew I was going to write a book about it. The book Nightfaring was born learning about darkness on a couple of different fronts in a couple of different ways. And then the more I thought about the idea of darkness and the more I talked about it with other people, why we've kind of vilified the dark in a certain way, I started to know that I needed to write something about it. As a writer, it becomes a kind of pathological need at a certain point that you're going to have to start writing once a topic is really taking you in that way. I'm a travel writer by profession. That's my job. I've been doing it for 20 years. When I started writing Nightfaring, I wasn't really setting out to write a memoir of places, but because I'm a travel journalist, that's how it came out. Other people have written about this topic wonderful books that informed and helped me in my research. I knew that I needed to experience the dark in different places. And so that's why it sort of became this travel memoir that's in a mix of armchair travel and science all together in one.
Can you describe your relationship with darkness and how the darkness, the night sky, gives you a real sense of perspective?
The more time that I have spent in darkness, and especially when I talk about darkness, I'm often referring to outside under the night sky and looking at the stars and looking at the moon and things like that. So that kind of darkness, being outside at night, looking at the cosmos, has always helped me feel a sense of perspective. It recalibrates scale. It reminds me that I'm both small and also extremely big, because it kind of connects you to both the cosmic scale and the molecular scale. So you can see yourself in this dynamic context as a being. And it connects you to something really vast in the cosmos, and it's ongoing and it's alive. And for me, that feeling is very humbling, but it's also very freeing. It's a place that I go to regroup. I spend a lot of time meditating outside at night. So it helps me to be still, to refine myself. And it's also a place that I get a lot of ideas. So it's a very dynamic relationship I have with darkness, but it's also a place that I go to find peace.
So what is sky glow, and what are some of the results of light pollution?
Sky glow is a term that basically refers to the overall brightening of our night sky, which is caused by artificial light at night. And when we talk about artificial light at night, that means any kind of outdoor lighting, and sometimes indoor lighting that spills outside, or street lights that are pointing up, stadium lights for sports stadiums that are floating up into the air, or light coming out of greenhouses. Light is made of essentially particles, little photons. I like to think of them actually as water droplets. And if you think about each of those photons being pieces of water that's being wasted up into the air, it becomes a lot more clear. So sky glow is just a kind of overall brightening of the sky because of wasted light. So that's kind of what sky glow is. That's a way of describing light pollution. Really what interested me when I started researching this was what this does culturally, how it changes our relationship to the night itself, and therefore it changes our relationship to nature. I'm originally from the US. Now I've lived in the UK and London for a long, long time. We have a lot of light pollution and we don't have many stars. And I meet a lot of young people here who have never seen the night sky at all. It made me question what we're losing culturally, a generation of people who are growing up having no access to a sense of the cosmos that humans have had for all time.
So your book is about different places that you visit. And the first stop on your journey was New Zealand and a visit with your father. In New Zealand, you learned about the importance of the dark sky in the constellations. Can you share some of the perspectives and practices that relate to the night sky?
This refers to the Maori people who are indigenous to the islands of New Zealand. But one thing I do want to be very careful about when I talk about these chapters is that I'm not positioning myself as someone who speaks on behalf of other indigenous knowledge or practice. In Nightfaring, I do write about Maori relationships to the night sky, and I write about some other indigenous traditions. I really try to do so by listening to indigenous astronomers, educators. So I can't really share those perspectives and practices here because it's not really my place to do that. But what I can say is that what really struck me as a visitor in New Zealand, the night is woven into so much of Maori and New Zealander culture, into genealogy, into especially navigation, seasonal knowledge. New Zealand has, I think, the world's only national holiday dedicated to an astronomical phenomenon, which is their holiday of Matariki. Matariki is the rising of the Pleiades constellation every year. And Matariki is a Maori holiday. And so now Matariki is celebrated every year by all New Zealanders. And it's the rising of the Pleiades, which was an important part of Maori harvest and planting traditions, and also of their Polynesian navigation systems, which were used by early Maori people to travel all over that region by boats. So that's just one of many, many examples when you visit New Zealand where you'll see the night sky kind of built into the culture there. And New Zealand is now working quite hard on their dark sky protections, certifying more dark sky parks and dark sky sanctuaries and communities there, and they're really trying to become the first dark sky nation. New Zealand is a wonderful story of hope and success on what a whole country can do when we want to come together to protect the night.
So all indigenous cultures have their own cosmological beliefs. Can you share some of the traditional cultures from around the world that have a feminine connection to darkness?
Great question. And I think there are many examples of this. And like I said before, I'm very conscious of not speaking on behalf of any particular indigenous group, but I did try in Nightfaring to point to some of these traditions. In the chapter on this, there are a number listed. Many cultures do hold quite powerful associations between the concept of darkness and creation. Feminine here being more of an energetic idea rather than gender idea. In many of these traditions, the meanings are quite specific to each culture. I tried to rely on voices from those communities, quotes from scholars and experts who have written on these topics. So I really did try to rely on those voices, but I don't want to suggest that there is one single global idea of the feminine or of darkness. As readers will find out when they read the books, that there are some traditions where the feminine is quite a powerful, dark underworld goddess. Some other ideas is a wolf protective mother. The range of how darkness embodies in a feminine way is quite diverse across the world. And in our concepts here in the West, in the US, in Europe, we often don't think about darkness in such an embodied way. We think about it through a very Judeo-Christian lens, and it becomes an abstraction that is vilified or associated with devil or evil. So I think it's helpful for us to look at other traditions outside of Western European mindset to understand how we can appreciate darkness.
So you live in London, where you founded DarkSky London. What is DarkSky London?
So DarkSky London is a volunteer-led community initiative. We are focused on raising awareness about light pollution in our city and trying to advocate for more responsible, human-centered lighting. So it's not just about turning lights off, it's about more responsible lighting. We're not interested in turning all the lights off. That's not the point at all. So DarkSky London is independent, but we're very aligned with the broader values of DarkSky International, which is the international nonprofit organization that certifies all of the dark sky parks all over the world. So we're aligned very much with the principles and of the overall dark sky movement. So we work on awareness raising here in London, just trying to get the word out about what dark sky means, what light pollution is. And we also add our input to a lot of policymaking sessions. There are several environmental groups, social groups, charities, and nonprofits here that are working together on the issue of light pollution, and we are among them. For example, next week, I'll be attending the UK Parliament session with members of our representatives. They're part of a cross-party group. Members of any political party can join, and they come together on a cross-party day to talk about particular topics. And we have one group that is dedicated to the issue of light pollution, working towards better laws and better national policy here in the UK about light pollution. We still have quite a far ways to go in the UK in terms of legislation about light pollution. Some of our neighbors in Europe, like France and Germany, they have very good dark sky laws now in place. Croatia is another good example. And then other things that I do with DarkSky London is simply get out and be involved in the community. I'll lead dark sky walks with groups in different parts of London. I did one recently in the borough of Birmingham, which is in South London. I talked about light pollution, and then we went on a walk outside. We looked at different types of lighting. We talked about why certain types of lighting are better or worse. And it really helps people to get an understanding of this light is actually not helping me see better, it's making me see worse. I think light pollution is still something that a lot of people aren't even aware of yet.
You say in the book that human understanding of the cosmos and of ourselves are born in darkness. Who was Ulugh Beg, and what is his historical significance in the advancement of astronomy?
So Ulugh Beg is an individual that I just have a personal fascination with. For many years before I started writing this book, I worked at a travel publisher called Lonely Planet. They produce guidebooks to every destination in the world. My job there was to be the editor for East and Central Asia, the countries of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan. And I was very lucky and very fortunate to be able to visit these places during my job. I encountered the story of Eaves-Egenes when I was visiting Uzbekistan, and I just became fascinated with him as an individual. He was a medieval ruler of what is now Uzbekistan. More so than a ruler, an astronomer. Kind of a nerdy guy. He loved the sciences, and he really didn't take to being a ruler very well. I think he's just a fascinating individual. And his work was fundamental to carrying on the science of astronomy during the period of the so-called Dark Ages. So I went to Uzbekistan primarily because I've always been fascinated with Eaves-Egenes as a person. I wanted to bring readers along with me to a place they perhaps wouldn't know as much about, as well as introducing this history of Persian and Islamic astronomy that a lot of people don't know about. And we know the basics of European astronomy, but these histories of how Persian and Middle Eastern astronomers really carried the sciences and invented many of the important devices and tools that modern astronomy is born from. So it is important to bring that history that's a little bit less young into the story of Nightfaring. It goes back to the metaphorical dark and the things that we forget about or we don't look at as much. I felt like Eaves-Egenes, maybe, he was a little bit lost in the dark too. I felt a real strong connection to him over time and place.
So in the book, you spend 4 days in darkness in a dark room in Germany. Can you share why you chose to do this and what the experience revealed?
So this experience was, I think, personal. People, when they read it, will feel that and understand that. And I write this chapter very much in an immersive way. But it was very important to me as I began to research darkness. I began to realize there's actually nowhere in modern life, anywhere on Earth pretty much, that you can go and really experience true, pure darkness, because there's always going to be the light of the moon or the street light outside your window. It's almost impossible for your body to experience full darkness. You can put an eye mask on, and that will give you kind of an illusion of what darkness is. So for me, I felt this real need to feel what darkness was. The more I thought about the topic and the more I read and the more I learned, it just seemed like I can't fully write about this unless I've truly experienced the real thing. And I'm very conscious now of not turning this chapter into a single takeaway. It was a crucial experience to spend that time in complete darkness. You have no phone, you have no watch, no sense of time. You can't see where your toothbrush is. You can't see where your bed is. You have to remember where you put your medications at night. You are blind in that experience. And you're also cloistered into the room. So you're also not moving. You're also not having any other stimulus. It's quiet. And you're really forced to reckon with the experience of literally doing nothing. And that's kind of what you start to experience a little bit alongside me of what it felt like to go through that experience. For me, that was a hinge point of the book. It was something I was very nervous about when I did it. So what I learned by writing that chapter was actually about resisting the urge to explain. And that is something that darkness can really give us, is a tolerance and even a joy in the unknown.
You also say in the book that light pollution has more than just environmental effects, that it also has philosophical, psychological, and even spiritual underpinnings. Can you elaborate?
It goes back to, in some ways, what I was just talking about with the dark room and the things you've already touched on, the way different cultures and traditions and religions interpret darkness. Through all of my experiences in this research, is that darkness is not just the absence of light. It is that, but it is also an active condition. It is one half of our 24-hour planetary cycle. It supports rest. It also supports ecological balance. Humans cannot release the hormone melatonin from our bodies without darkness. So we can't sleep without it. We can't rest. Those are the physical things. But to touch then on the psychological things and the more spiritual things. It gives us humility. It gives us a sense of patience and things that are actually really crucial to life on Earth that maybe looking around at the world right now, we're lacking a bit of. Not having the rest and the regeneration cycle part of it is toxic. For me, that's how the spiritual part of it comes in. Dark moments and times in your life, those are when you're really growing. And it brings me back to these metaphors about how seeds are planted into the dark soil and germinate under the ground. And so these dark places are places that we need to go to regenerate ourselves and to fuel our creativity and to build intimacy, to build all sorts of crucial parts of being human.
You also visit Ireland, where you learn more of the ancient knowledge of darkness and the stars. So how important is our connection to darkness as we face an uncertain future?
It's a great question. And it goes back to something I think I said earlier about kind of my relationship with the dark and what I use darkness for and what I gain from being in the dark, which is around rest and around perspective. Encounters with the night sky especially, and with darkness, but especially with the cosmos and the night sky, whether we're talking about ancient people, ancient cultures, or modern people, this encounter we have with the cosmos has a kind of way of making us feel like we're simultaneously small and that our problems really aren't that bad, but it also gives us a sense that we're part of something ongoing. That perspective has always mattered, especially in times of uncertainty or upheaval. It really helps us to step outside of the immediacy of crisis. And it can help us, if we let it, to remember that we're part of something much bigger and much longer in time scale. Any good stargazer will tell you that looking at the night sky is in many ways looking back in time. So if you go outside tonight and you look at the star Sirius, which is the brightest star in the night sky, it's a little bright dot right next to the constellation Orion. So it's a very bright star, you can't miss it. If you see Sirius, the light that is touching your eyeballs left Sirius 8.6 years ago. But many of the stars and constellations and galaxies that we look at are 300 years old. And so it connects us across time to people before us. But also, Earth is just unseeably small on a cosmic scale. For me, that perspective is very freeing. It allows me to extract myself from the ongoing narrative and sort of give us a chance to marvel at the cosmos. There's a wonderful photo called the pale blue dot photo. It was taken by the spacecraft Voyager 1 on its way out towards the edges of our solar system. And Carl Sagan wrote this wonderful speech about the photo. And he kind of talks about, he says, everyone that's ever lived, everyone he's ever heard of, creators and destroyers of civilization. That's us, that tiny dot, that's home.
So this whole interview has really been an answer to my next question. Darkness is a part of nature, part of the natural world. So what do we lose when we lose the darkness?
That is the question. That is absolutely the question. That is the crux of the question that I took with me when I set out to write Nightfaring. It's that made me research this topic. It's a question that each reader will ask themselves as they read. My hope is that Nightfaring may inspire people to go out and have their own experiences in the dark. I have a lot of answers to that question, and they're my answers. And my hope and request is that people will go out and experience the dark, or maybe take another look at it, reconsider their experiences and their beliefs and their views about what darkness is. Maybe try to reframe their fears a little bit and find out for themselves what their answer to that question is. What do we lose when we lose the dark? And it's really important for us all to each have our own answers, because when we understand those answers, that's when we make change happen. It's not me telling people what the answer is. It's everyone going out and going, oh, this is important, and it's important to me, and this is why. As I said, I could list 100 things we lose, but my aim is for others to think about that and to come to their own conclusions. if Nightfaring inspires just even one person to go out and experience the dark in a new way, then I think I've done my job.
So in closing, can you share some of what you personally have learned from your journey, from your Nightfaring?
Absolutely. I have learned to lean in to the mysteries and unknowns of life and what those have to offer you. Often, I think the greatest lessons and growth and change come when we can't see the path ahead. And then you do have to trust our own process is becoming. And this goes back to your question earlier about the spiritual, philosophical elements of this. A lot of this is one step at a time through the dark, and that's how we become that's how we grow and become better people. And I truly, truly hope that readers need to take away a sense of just how urgent the issue of light pollution is, and equally, though, how easy it is to solve. You know, I would try to say light pollution is the easiest form of pollution to solve. It's not like plastics in the ocean. Light pollution has no residue. When we turn off one light, or we shield one light, or we close our blind, or close our curtains, the problem is fixed. There's no residue, and we will save ourselves a little bit of carbon expense and monetary expense by simply not using as many lights as we are. We don't need to turn them all off, but to use them a lot more thoughtfully and a lot less wastefully, we'll end up in a better place. And it's so easy and quick to fix. You can do it right now. It's just people having an awareness of that. There's a lot of hope in that. I've also found a lot of hope in the shared connections that I've made under the night sky and looking at the stars with people in different countries and in different languages and learning about different stories of the sky. And incredible that we're all looking at the same sky, the same stars together. We're all here together. And that gives me so much hope to think about that. I hope the book encourages people to suspend their fears a little bit and experience the full cycle of night and day.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Megan Eaves-Egenes, and that you find the opportunity to read her fascinating book, Nightfaring, as well as to take the time to gaze into the night sky before the darkness disappears. If you enjoyed this episode of Nature Revisited, please share with friends, family, and colleagues. And please rate us on your favorite podcast server. It will help us to reach a larger audience. You can follow Nature Revisited on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, nortonproductions.com. And please share your comments and suggestions for future guests for Nature Revisited on the comment section of this episode on our website. The music for this episode is The Machine in the Garden by Ben Cosgrove from his album, The Trouble with Wilderness. The Nature Revisited team consists of Stefan Van Orden, Charles Gagan, and Scott Chasky. And I hope you will join us for the next edition of Nature Revisited. And in the meantime, remember, we are nature.